Welcome to Rural Ruckus Radio and Podcast. I'm your host, John Monson. Welcome again to the show. Today we have another special guest, this one from Compeer Financial, also our sponsor. Really happy to have Perry Aasness. He is handling all of the legislative affairs for Compeer, and one of the things about it is I had a chance to hire Perry and bring him in, but he and I have worked together for a long, long time. I don't even know how far back does it go, Perry? I'm trying to think about it.
20 years at least, I'm sure.
Yep, 20 years or more. So, and we had an opportunity to work at, when you were the Department of Ag as Deputy Commissioner, and I was the FSA State Director here in Minnesota. And so we've known each other a long time. But nobody better, in my view, or ever has been, in terms of working the legislative process than you, Perry. You've always done it with results, and you've done it with a lot of humility and a huge network, frankly, with a lot of impact for the clients of Compeer. So let's start a little bit right there. Perry, why don't you go into a little bit just about your role at Compeer and kind of what you're doing now, and then we'll get into some of the priorities and other things that we're working on.
Yeah. Well, first off, thanks for having me.
You bet.
We have known each other a long time, and professional and personal, it's just been great to get together with you today. So my title is Vice President of Legislative Affairs with Compeer Financial, but basically what that means is just doing the government relations work for Compeer. Mm-hmm. I like to say about 75% of what I do is more focused on federal issues, given that we're part of the Farm Credit System and Congress sets our authorities. And then because we operate in 3 states, there are a lot of policy issues that impact Compeer and our clients. And so we work with we have some contract folks at each of the 3 states that we work with. And so we want to make sure that we're a voice and that we're supporting and going alongside the broader ag community on issues at the state level. But primarily it's focused on the federal level, given, again, Congress sets our authorities. And so we spend a lot of time out in Washington, D.C. and building relations and trying to get some good things done.
You've always been very focused on production agriculture, of course, throughout your career. But here today on the podcast, we're going to really focus in on rural. And we'll talk a little bit about Compeer's role in all of that and so on. But it's interesting to me, and always was, that Compeer has its own legislative affairs person, was one actually of the first predecessors to Compeer. You were hired out as well, and even had a legislative director back then to really make sure that the issues on behalf of the clients of Compeer and AgStar as well, when you came in, all of that was covered. And to make sure that their priorities were understood. Why is it so important that Compeer today has a legislative affairs person? And you're not the only one, by the way, right?
Right.
Yeah. Why is it so important that they have somebody in your position?
Well, I think it's a historically cultural thing that started with AgStar and it continued on with Compeer. We really want to be a voice for rural America. We want to bring solutions to policymakers that can actually have tangible impacts back in rural communities. And so it takes people dedicated to build those relations, build those networks, and ultimately get some things done, hopefully through a farm bill, and we can talk about that in a moment. But I think it just shows Compeer's commitment to let's do what we can, not just to do the normal, what people expect of a Farm Credit Association, but let's try to move the needle and really make a difference. And it's going to require some policy changes in Washington, D.C. to do so.
Yeah. Our show's unfiltered, meaning we're willing to be a little bit bold. Compeer has always been bold in this area. Okay. It's always been willing to especially represent rural communities, right? And part of this role has been, and I think in part because I was so deeply involved in it, that was core to my passion as well, and I know that you took it on so easily, was to really make sure that rural communities were visible, their voice was understood and known and well represented in Congress. But you've really led the way, Perry, in terms of making sure that our rural communities are represented through Compeer to Congress. And what's really sort of, I think, amazed me is you guys have really focused in a different way on legislative process to support those communities around infrastructure. Can you explain a little bit about what you've done and how different that is?
Well, I think it starts off with fundamentally, we want to be solution-oriented. It's easy in the public policy world to be against things. And I always say it's easy to be against things. What are you for? Right. And I think in this case with Compeer, we are for trying to bring that capital back to rural communities to support rural America. You led it. I'm taking a lot of cues from your leadership, and so it comes down to knowing that policymakers in most cases understand there's a lot of needs in rural America. We want to be at the table. We want to be coming to them with solutions, and I think that has helped us build some support for some of our Farm Bill priorities to be able to finance some of these essential rural community facilities. But it's really about bringing solutions forward. And, having been a former congressional staffer and dealing with them now and members of Congress, they got a myriad of issues that they're dealing with every day. It only grows. And so you got to kind of cut through and say, everybody recognizes there are challenges in rural America, but tremendous opportunities if we can unleash things like capital and things like that. And so here's our solution. And I think working with a lot of other partners, we've been able to build some coalitions with some non-traditional farm credit groups to help make the case that something needs to be done. And here's one way to do it.
And you work with some legislators in a bipartisan way. I mean, the word bipartisan is rare to be able to speak when you're working on legislative initiatives, right? But you did this in a bipartisan way. Can you explain kind of how that was accomplished and what that actually meant?
Yeah, it's just kind of showing up and being there to say, we know these needs are out there. We hear from you as a member that you care about these issues. And, frankly, in most cases, ag rural policy, it shouldn't be partisan. It should be bipartisan. And I think in most cases, that's still the case. And so we want to make it that way. We don't want to be coming forward with something for one side or the other because elections happen. It's just about building relationships, helping them know we exist. We care about these issues. We've got some solutions. I think the fun thing about these initiatives, particularly on the community facilities piece, that we have built bipartisan support.
Yeah,
we are trying to bring solutions and trying to bring people together. And it's encouraging to see it when we see all the partisan fighting and government shutdowns and election posturing. It's like there still is opportunities when you come up with some ideas that help support rural America that both sides of the aisle can get behind.
And it's built around some research that was accomplished as well that told us the need. And I think the bottom line from that research was status quo is not working, right?
Right.
And so you built we helped to build some legislative language that said we need to invest together with others from nonprofit, private, public sector in order to get this done. The need is expanding on a yearly basis, but you had to go out to the Hill and find the sponsors. And what the way we built it was that there was one Democrat and one Republican, one Democrat, one Republican, and kept building it in a balanced way. Yeah. Is that rare, or is that something that's typically done? How is that generally accomplished when you look at like a farm bill, for example?
It's somewhat rare, but I think, again, if we're bringing solutions forward and we can explain the situation, you mentioned the data that we've been able to provide. Everybody, I don't care which side of the aisle, which office you go into, when you talk about rural issues and how to support rural America, everybody understands the need out there. But we were able to quantify that to some extent, what the need was. The study that we had done showed there was like a $6 billion annual gap in things like funding for rural hospitals and senior living and daycare and fire stations and things like that. And by the way, we've got some additional information now that shows that gap is only growing. But to our knowledge, I think what's been helpful in this conversation is everybody talks about the problem. We were able to quantify it, and we have good stories backing up what we're able to do currently. At the end of the day, you got to have data and stories. If you can have both, you can be successful, I think, in the policy arena. Yep. And so we've had some great stories of communities that have needed to build facilities that were 60, 70 years old. And because they were able to do that, they're able to attract general physicians and surgeons into their community. That's what this is all about, right? Yep. So we have those stories, and we can document the need. And to our knowledge, nobody can refute the fact that there are needs out there. So I think when you bring compelling data and stories and the need to do more, I think that's helped us get support for this on a bipartisan basis.
Now, we ran into opposition to this. It was tough. and I remember Jace Wagner, CEO of Compeer, got out in front of a congressional committee and said, we needed a Rural America Capital Team. And that Rural America Capital Team means we all need to be a part of this solution. those who are capital providers to rural America need to work together. Yeah. Not apart, not divide, not protect our own territories, but begin to establish a new approach because status quo isn't working. And that really is still the case today. Yeah. As you look at, now this language is in the Farm Bill, correct?
It's been reintroduced, and we're waiting for Farm Bill text on the House side. But yeah, it was last year.
Right, it was last year. Yep. Fully expect, I would suppose, that we probably should see some success ultimately on this too. Yeah. So the Farm Bill, where is it at now, Perry?
Yeah. Well, with the government shutdown, it's kind of been backed up, unfortunately. Here's the good news. Going back a year ago at this time, back in May, the House included our language in their Farm Bill. G.T. Thompson, the chair of the Ag Committee, included that in his bill text. On the Senate side, at the end of the year, former Chair Debbie Stabenow included text to provide this permit authority in there. And so I think we're positioned well on both sides of the aisle in leadership in both the House and Senate from the Agriculture Committee standpoint, but we just have yet to see a bill yet. So I'm hoping once the shutdown ends, which it eventually will, that probably the House will go first and again release their bill text, which I am assuming our text will be included, and that will start that process. Right. But you mentioned something really important that I think there's 3 points that are important about this. We had the data to show the gap. We showed how it could be done and some of the stories. And the third thing, we showed the collaboration and partnership. And that's been absolutely the third point as we've talked to policymakers. We're not about creating divides. We're not about creating battles. It's about how do we work together. We are, Compeer is committed to collaborating with anybody that we can find to help support this. And so it is a team sport. And to your point, that's what Jace's message is. That's what your message was when you were at Compeer.
And I think there's a fourth point even that you can add. Compeer is not asking. This legislation asks for no money. Yeah. It doesn't ask for any kind of appropriation for this purpose. It just says allow more people to come together to be able to provide capital for rural infrastructure because it's aged, it's old, it's needed, and it's a huge deal. So what happens, Perry, if this doesn't pass? If there's not this legislation, then what happens?
Well, Compeer will continue to do what we can in this space, at least with financing rural hospitals and senior
One
living.
One
at a time, case by case. It's cumbersome. It doesn't provide that certainty. And frankly, it doesn't allow for more broader involvement with the farm credit system and community bank partners and whatever. So I think it is, it's frustrating that it takes this long, but I do feel like there's momentum to include some language in this. As you mentioned, that was an important point. It doesn't cost the government any money. So at a time when government is spending a lot of money right now, even in the ag space, it's like we're just asking for permission from Congress.
Right.
We're just saying, you understand what we see, what you hear from your constituents, that there are needs out there. We want to be part of the solution. Right. And so I was hoping they would get something done by the end of this year. Maybe they will. If not, I think there's certainly seems to be will on both sides of the aisle, both Republicans and Democrats, to get something done early in 2026.
Well, I think the real danger in not passing this, again, unfiltered conversation here. I'm sure Compeer doesn't want to address it maybe in this way, but I will because I can now. If this doesn't get done, we don't get to build as many hospitals as are needed. Yeah. Rural ambulance services, fire halls, we just don't provide them. So people that are waiting at an emergency room that need to be transported from one place to another, and I hear this constantly across rural communities, that just doesn't happen on a timely basis when you have to have it. Yeah. Senior care. We've all put our parents or we've put grandparents in those facilities. The last thing we want to see in a nursing home is 2 beds in a room separated by a sheet with a bathroom that is not, can't fit a wheelchair in, can't fit a walker in there. Yeah. It's an undignified way to live and for our lives. And we don't want to leave our loved ones there. Yeah. What happens if we don't pass this legislation is it's very difficult to fund a project. And I know this from personal experience. When you don't have permanent authority, when you can't say, I guarantee you that funding is going to be there. I've got to go to my regulator and see if they're willing to say yes or no. Right. And then if we are, we'll see if we can get some other partners to go along with us in that uncertain environment of approval. That's the real cost of not being able to do this. Yeah. And that's probably the biggest problem of all. So if there's been a singular passion, and you know it better than me, or better than most, it's certainly Compeer, this has got to get done. Because This is about lives. It's about healthcare of rural residents. And it's something that must get done. And again, this legislation is about partnership. We're not asking for any money, right? And there's the data and the research to prove it's absolutely necessary. And for those that are territorial about it, they need to stand down and just work together, right? We know it's for the betterment of these rural communities. So a little bit of a rampage there, but you know what? I don't really care. It's my show, Perry, right?
Well,
we get to do that.
You have the passion, and I think it's infiltrated with a lot of us. But at the end of the day, you made the point. It's about helping people's lives, helping their quality of life. It's about not just our farmer clients. It's about rural communities. It's about people that may want to move back to a rural community.
Right.
And want to make sure that those amenities that they would like and what they need are going to be there. So it's a win-win-win. So
Perry, it's got to be tough in a relatively dysfunctional area. Government's closed, right? And it may go for a while. We don't know. We'll have to see what happens. But how hard is it to operate in an environment where there's no consistency? There's a lot of dysfunction. The words governing and bipartisanship are kind of out the window today. Everybody's sort of pressed by the extremes of these parties, and those players get all the airtime on the media. What's it like for you?
Yeah, it's frustrating when you see the broader picture on things, but it has been a fun issue to work on, John. It is great to go to Capitol Hill, talk to staff and members about real solutions.
Right.
We see too often where, I'm not casting aspersions on groups, but you're going to Capitol saying, we're against this, we're against this. We're coming saying, we see the need, we have a solution, we need your support. And it's just been fun to see. We've developed some real champions on this issue in Congress. And so that part is fun.
Name some of those champions.
Well, the lead sponsor that we reached out to early on this is Congresswoman Michelle Fischbach from Minnesota.
She was amazing.
She took this on. Congressman Brad Finstead was another early champion. But
he was incredible too.
Yeah. And a congressman from North Carolina, Don Davis, Democrat, early champion of this as well. And so, and you start thinking about even within our territory, we've got so many members of our congressional delegation that are on, we've been focused more on co-sponsors on the House side, but Pete Stauber from Minnesota, Tony Weed, Derek Van Orden from Wisconsin, Eric Sorensen, Nikki Budzinski from Illinois. And so, again, bipartisan.
Yep.
But what's encouraging is these are all, or most all, are on the Agriculture Committee. So as they get down to getting a Farm Bill text introduced and marking it up, I feel like we've got good support.
How about our senators?
Our senators, by and large, we've gotten good support on this from Senator Klobuchar. And I should mention Congresswoman Angie Craig, too, has been a supporter on this.
She's in a key position now, too.
Yep. And I think we've had good conversations, even though we don't have what's called a marker bill on the Senate, where we actually have bill text introduced. We've had good conversations with the Ag Committee Chair, John Bozeman, he and his team about this. As I mentioned, Senator Klobuchar as well. So I feel like we're positioned well. Again, we just got to get that vehicle, that legislative vehicle, which we see the natural place for that being a farm bill, and get that process going.
Well, Perry, you've done a whale of a job. I mean, navigating perilous waters for sure. It's been extremely challenging. You had a boss that was breathing down your neck to see if we could get something done. Hey, it's good to see that you kept your phone on during the podcast, Perry. Appreciate that.
It's a Compeer director.
Oh, okay, all right. Well, if you need to take the call, feel free, Perry. It's just a podcast. Anyways, but so glad that you're here with us today and talking about the hard work that you're doing. You have done yeoman's job, again, with a boss who was breathing down your neck to see some results. But we did it together. We all were working really hard together to see it work.
I see this as your legacy and something that when I joined Compeer, I wasn't all that attuned to, but certainly see the need and feel very passionate about it.
Well, there probably isn't a legislative director that's more of an expert on it now than you are across the country. So thank you for all the work that you've done, my friend. I appreciate everything that you've done and, of course, working together down our career at USDA, whether we were in city floods, recovering cattle from CRP, whatever it was, we've worked through an awful lot of stories over the years, you name it. So anyways, this is John Monson signing off with Rural Ruckus Radio and Podcast. Thanks for watching today and look forward to our next show.